Hello, we are live again. Time for driving. Pupunta ako sa hospital.
Today, Israel hits a Gaza hospital, killing at least 20, including journalists. A weekend of deadly strikes despite talk of peace between Ukraine and Russia. The US confirms its first travel-associated human case of screwworm. South Korea's president hopes for a breakthrough with Trump. A man wrongly deported has been taken back into ICE custody, and anti-migrant protests intensify in Britain. It's Monday, August 25th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. I'm Tara Oakes in Liverpool. strikes on the Nasser hospital in the south of the Gaza Strip have killed at least 20 people, including 5 journalists. Cameraman Hussam al-Masri, a Reuters contractor, was killed near a live broadcasting position operated by Reuters on an upper floor just below the roof of the hospital in Khan Yunis. That's according to Palestinian health officials. Officials at the hospital and witnesses say Israel then struck the site a second time, killing other journalists as well as rescue workers and medics who had rushed to the scene to help. The journalists killed included Maryam Abu Daga, who freelanced for the Associated Press and other outlets, Mohammed Salamat, who worked for Qatar-based broadcaster Al Jazeera, Moaz Abu Taha, a freelance journalist who worked with several news...
Red light and speed camera ahead. In 300 meters. Speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour.
Khaled, also a Reuters contractor, was wounded. The Israel Defense Forces have acknowledged striking the area of Nasser Hospital and say the Chief of the General Staff has ordered an inquiry. The IDF says it regrets any harm to uninvolved individuals and does not target journalists as such. A Reuters spokesperson said in a statement, "We are devastated to learn that cameraman Hussam al-Masri, contracted to Reuters, was killed this morning in Israeli strikes on Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis in Gaza." Moaz Abu Taha, a freelance journalist whose work had been occasionally published by Reuters, was also killed, and photographer Hatem Khaled, a Reuters contractor, was wounded, adding that we are urgently seeking more information and have asked authorities in Gaza and Israel to help us get urgent medical assistance for Hatem. Kilma Abrego Garcia has been taken back into custody by ICE agents. The man the courts ruled had been wrongly deported to El Salvador is now fighting not to be sent to Uganda. Abrego briefly reunited with his family over the weekend after 5 months in custody. But this morning, he was detained again after reporting for an 8 a.m. interview with ICE officials. U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed ICE is processing...
Speed bump ahead in a minute.
...to Uganda. Now to Ukraine, where the deadliest European war since World War II is continuing despite talk of peace. Weekend drone strikes by Ukraine hit a Russian nuclear plant and separately ignited a fire at a major fuel terminal, according to Russian officials. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance says Russia is making significant concessions in peace talks, which would include security guarantees for Ukraine and dropping demands for regime change in Kyiv. But Moscow still wants Ukraine to give up...
Speed bump ahead in a minute.
...of NATO. The US has confirmed its first travel-associated human case of New World screwworm in a traveler returning to Maryland from Central America. The CDC says the public risk is low, but cattle producers are alarmed. The flesh-eating parasite burrows deep into living tissue and can be fatal if untreated. Israeli airstrikes have hit Yemen's capital, Sana'a, killing at least 6 and wounding dozens. They say it's in retaliation for a ballistic missile fired by Houthi militants towards Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying in a statement after the strike, "Whoever attacks us, we attack them." The Iran-backed Houthis say they will continue launching attacks in solidarity with Gaza. South Korea's new president, Lee Jae-myung, faces a pivotal moment when he meets President Trump for their first summit later today. Much is riding on the meeting for Lee, who took office after a snap election after his conservative predecessor was removed for attempting to impose martial law. Josh Smith tells us what's at stake.
South Korea's economy is heavily dependent on its exports to the United States. And obviously, Trump has brought his own views of alliances and relationships with trade partners to all of this, and has in the past really singled out South Korea for criticism, basically complaining that it's freeloading off American military guarantees without paying enough towards that as a rich nation. The trade deal that was hastily negotiated a few weeks ago has still not really been formally written down, so the South Koreans still have a lot to iron out with the United States on this. South Korea has also faced calls from Trump to increase the amount that it pays towards the upkeep of some 28,500 U.S. troops that are stationed here in South Korea. And so I think the South Koreans are expecting at some point to pay more, but I think they're hoping to limit the amount that they're going to have to pay in the end.
Lee's team are hoping the two leaders hit it off.
In the past, he's been critical of the United States and vowed to improve ties with China, and so he's faced sometimes some skepticism within Washington over his commitment to the U.S. alliance. He said that he's read
Red
the
light and speed camera ahead. In 600 meters. Speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour.
Look out for their country's best interests and how they both survived assassination attempts.
Another weekend of anti-migrant protests here in Britain. Demonstrators have been gathering outside hotels housing asylum seekers, including in Epping near London, which has become a flashpoint for the protests. Sam Tabariti has more.
Asylum seekers are housed in hotels because there's a shortage of suitable accommodation and delays in processing claims. The government has said that, hotels are used as a contingency measure while they try and sort out the housing issue. The government has pledged to end their use by the end of this parliament in 2029, but it is struggling to meet that at the moment. It has become
accident-prone area ahead. In a minute.
Economy as a top public concern, and it's due to different factors, including one, the cost. The government has spent £2.1 billion last year on hotel accommodation for asylum seekers, but also because in Epping, one of the asylum seekers living in a hotel
This
was
is South
charged
Korea,
with sexual
everyone.
assault, and that has
I am Georgina, the mother of Nuri Gaon, Jaymar,
Series of speed bumps ahead in a minute.
Junjun, and
Nigel
Jeddah.
Farage, who's the leader of the Populist Reform UK Party,
Let's
has
drive
used
around
this
town.
as a way to rally people around his agenda. Farage set out his plans for mass deportation of migrants should his party win the next
And I'm
election.
listening to the
He said that
news.
his party would
Series of speed bumps ahead in a minute.
strike repatriation deals with countries like Afghanistan and Eritrea and build holding sites for 24,000 migrants.
Speed bump ahead in a minute.
This is the park.
And for today's recommended read,
One
maybe
famous
one to
park
avoid for
here in
nervous
our
flyers.
area.
We dive into data that shows in civil aviation
It's
no
the
seat
Peace
is reliably
Park
safe.
Square.
But also look at some incredible tales of survival from deadly plane crashes. You can find the story by following the link in the pod description. And if you haven't listened yet, our latest episode of On Assignment podcast is out. This week's
We're facing red light and speed camera ahead. In 600 meters. Speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour.
Check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.
Speed bump ahead in a minute.
Expanding his crime crackdown. I'm Tom Graham, Fox News. President Trump considering deploying federal forces to other cities after his takeover of the Washington police.
President Trump says the military can go wherever is needed on short notice to beef up policing.
They need help badly. Chicago desperately needs help. Just look at the crime statistics.
But the president says he'd prefer to send in National Guard troops at the request of governors.
And when I see what's happening to our cities, and then you send in troops, instead of being praised, they're saying you're trying to take over the republic. These people are sick.
President Trump also signed an executive order designed to end no cash bail in D.C. and other jurisdictions, blaming the policy on crime increases. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Remembering Bridgegate, years after the political scandal, the president suggesting a potential fresh investigation into a former New Jersey governor.
President Trump hinting at investigating his former ally turned foe for, quote, criminal acts. This after Chris Christie suggested the president does not care about separating himself from federal probes just days after
Let's
an FBI
go
raid targeted
there.
former national security advisor, now Trump critic, Sean Bolton. President Trump, writing on Truth Social about Bridgegate, Chris refused to take responsibility for these criminal acts. For the sake of justice, perhaps we should start looking at that very serious situation again. Christie has long denied involvement in Bridgegate. That scheme closed access to the George Washington Bridge in Fort Lee, New Jersey, leading to crippling gridlock. Angelo Bavaro, Fox News.
A network of clinics in Maine will remain cut off from federal Medicaid funding during a legal fight with the Trump administration over cuts to abortion providers. Under the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, Medicaid money stopped flowing to Planned Parenthood. America is listening to Fox News.
Listen to the all-new Brett Baier podcast featuring Common Ground, in-depth talks with lawmakers from opposite sides of the aisle, along with all your Brett Baier favorites like his all-star panel and much more. Available now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
The legal saga continues for El Salvadorian national Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's
Accident-prone area ahead. In a minute.
Facility where he's facing human trafficking charges. He's pushing back after his latest arrest at an ICE facility in Baltimore.
Mr. Abrego Garcia has filed a new lawsuit in the Federal District Court for the District of Maryland, challenging his current confinement and challenging deportation to Uganda or to any other country unless and until he's had a fair trial.
Attorney Simon Sandoval Motionberg, Abrego Garcia has become a
Red light pa siya, red light. ako
Series
pupunta?
of speed bumps ahead in a minute.
Going to the Pyongyang.
Speed bump ahead in a minute.